And I think the idea that cake needs to be picture perfect is so silly.
Yeah.
Like, people who want cake, they want just a giant piece of cake in front of them. They just want to eat that cake. They don't care if it's a little lopsided. They don't care if the frosting is really thin in between the layers but really thick out. They're just like, they're so excited about cake.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Sarah Fennel is a self-taught baker and photographer. Her website, Broma Bakery, and her social platforms attract millions of fans monthly. On this episode, we talk about her great debut cookbook, Sweet Tooth, and all the things she is baking and cooking and posting about today. Sarah is such a fun hang, and we had a really, really cool conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Sarah Fennel, welcome. This is Taste. How are you? It's so nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you, too. I'm doing great. I'm so excited about this, and it's going to be a great time.
We're going to have a good chit-chat. All right, so Sarah Fennel. Fennel, is that really your last name?
It is really my last name. And the funny thing is, I got married, and I changed my last name to my husband's last name, Crawford. And like a year in, I was like, I've made a huge mistake. Not about the guy.
The guy's
about
great.
The name. And so it's still legally Crawford, but I kind of like publicly switched it back to Fennel. And I think in time I'll maybe legally switch it back. It just like it captures who I am. It's a food name in the food world. Like, come on.
It's a food name. And so growing up, the Fennel, like, did you enjoy Fennel? Did you get teased by Fennel? Did people celebrate you with Fennel?
Nobody knew what Fennel was. So I would get called Sarah Fennel all the time.
Oh, yeah. Fennel, of the Fennel family.
Fennel, yeah, like no. I would say I didn't really like Fennel. I really don't like licorice. Licorice is not my thing.
Yeah.
And then I realized that like raw Fennel is different than licorice. And I love raw Fennel. I love roasted Fennel. Roasted Fennel with chicken's amazing.
Yeah, so good.
Oh my God, so good. Even Fennel seeds are good. I just don't like
fronds.
Licorice.
Don't forget the fronds.
The fronds are amazing. So delicate and beautiful. Oh, love. Yeah.
So you just moved to New York from Boston via Michigan, via some other spots. I'd like to get a sense, what's it like living in New York now?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I feel like that sounds so contrived. Like everybody who moves to New York is like, oh my God, I love it. But I love it.
Yeah.
And my husband and I live in Brooklyn. Yeah. And Brooklyn, I think, was never something on our radar. I did my first 2 years of undergrad at NYU, so I was like always a Manhattan kid.
Yeah.
And especially I went to NYU 2009 to 2011. And Brooklyn was still like pretty, like hipstery vibes then. But it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. It feels so manageable, but there's also so much going on. It still has like a really nice sense of diversity in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And there's also more greenery. We're in Fort Greene, and there's just these big trees, and so it just feels like the best of all city
Great
worlds.
Restaurants. Where are you hitting up right now? You're new to the city. You're new here. What do you like?
Okay, so we've really been exploring like our neighborhood first and foremost. So we went to Sailor, which was I thought Sailor was like I would give it like 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I would only want to go back like once a season. I think it was just like a little elevated for my taste.
Yeah.
I really like.
Did it feel like it was like not as approachable?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little small space. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the food was phenomenal, but
Yeah.
I think just a little bit hoity for an everyday vibe.
Got it.
But there's space for that. Our favorite in the neighborhood so far has been Miss Ada, which is incredible. It was
Great
so
spot.
good. We also went to Romans, which was phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
We did one more in the neighborhood that was delicious.
You're hitting some good spots. I love Romans. That's
we're
great.
We're
neighborhood
getting
spots.
There. Yeah.
So what brought you to New York to move here?
My job.
Yeah.
So my husband just finished residency, and it was a 5-year program. We were in Boston, and then he took a year off, so we were actually there for 6 years and all this
6
stuff.
years too long, or was
6 years too long?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm from Boston. I loved where I grew up. I grew up right outside of Boston in a town called Belmont. It was amazing. I think Boston as a creative and as a person in the food scene is not the most conducive. There's just not – I mean, it's interesting. It's like there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of barriers in place to really help to bring up a lot of like young independent artists. So that was really hard, and I was really looking forward to sort of ending my tenure there. And so my husband has 1 more year in fellowship. So he's a spine surgery fellow.
Okay.
So he does the real deal spine surgeries. And he is like so good at what he does and I'm so proud of everything he does, but I don't want to continue to move for him.
No.
Especially when it's this
You spent
1
6
year.
years in Boston.
I spent 6 years in
For God's
Boston,
sake.
and we were in Detroit before that, and I loved Detroit when we were there, but we were there for his med school, and so, I have this career as well,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times when people have medicine spouses, the medicine spouse is the one really doing the career thing, and then you as the spouse or the other spouse are like an add-on, and we both have our own careers, so we really both do, I think, a really good job at like respecting each other's career goals. And it's not like he resents me for wanting to be here for the year. He's coming on the weekends. I'm going to Philadelphia where he's on the
He's
weekends.
in Philly. He's
in
not
Philly.
here.
Oh, yeah.
So you're rolling solo in Brooklyn.
I'm rolling solo.
Watch out, town.
Yeah. No, but it's nice because like he's so close that we're able to still have that time together. And then we're able to focus on our careers during the week, which is great.
It's so interesting when you say add-on because like for fans of Broma Bakery, you're not an add-on. I mean, you've been doing this for 15 years, which you're like a teenager. Like your website, your blog. You were blogging when it was called blogging. Yep. And to me, you've grown this community and your book is like the big breakout of the year. It's going to be like truly the biggest book. And I love it. And we'll get into why I love it. But I want to get a sense of why write the book now, 15 years after you launched it. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think a few reasons. So one, I've always been such a perfectionist, and I fully recognize that when you're creating something so tangible like a book, that's there forever. And I have never felt comfortable until the last 2 years in my career to say, no, I know I can look back on this in 15 and 20 years and still be really proud of the work I put in and not be like, I wish I had waited until I knew more about this or I knew more about this. Like I feel proficient in everything that I do. And I also feel like, really so many people since the pandemic have had these big career shifts, and you've seen so many new people in the food industry, so many people who've been in the food industry like me for a while that saw all these new creators and this whole new type of content that really, I think, humanized a lot of the food space. And I think I needed that shift and that sort of growth in order to feel really comfortable with doing something like writing a book where I could put as much of my personality as I did into it.
I'm hearing a lot of like you needed a few more like web-centric / TikTok-centric authors to write books.
Totally.
As to fuel the community, which we published many, versus it being like the old guard, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And I love that you're being honest about it because I think it's a real anxiety. You've been doing it for 15 years. You should have done it like 10 years ago probably, but you didn't have that feeling of community that you have now.
Totally.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
Totally. Absolutely. And I think too, I still struggle with when I meet somebody who doesn't know what I do, like saying, what do you do? Because food blogger doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
Like influencer definitely doesn't really fit. But I am both of those things. And so I think too, like seeing all these other people do it where there's not necessarily an exact title, you're like, okay, no, it is legit. Even if I can't name it in one or two words.
Do you get stopped on the street in New York?
Yeah.
It's cool, right?
It is cool. It's not like I like look forward to it or despise it or anything. Like I think it's really sweet when people come up to me and like know who I am. And like I think because I've been doing this online for so long, seeing people in real life, it's such a validation that I'm actually reaching real people, which is so cool.
Yeah, it must be nice to get feedback that people are actually making the recipes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's one thing I really like about food and like influencing in the food space. Like fashion influencers, home influencers, lifestyle influencers, they're still doing something to make people's lives better. But there's something about food that is so heartwarming and like that literally changes people's lives.
So what was the last encounter you had with a fan who said they made something? Does something come to mind?
I was in the line at Whole Foods, and this guy kept like looking over at me. And usually when I'm with my husband, like I'm a little spacey when I'm out. So usually my husband will be like, that person definitely knows who you are. And
he's the meter.
Yeah. But I was looking at this guy. I was like, okay, I think he knows who I am, but like, whatever. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then I'm going up the escalator and he goes, excuse me, are you Broma Bakery? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I literally just bought all the ingredients to make your double chocolate zucchini bread. And he like pulled up his bag. He was like, I'm trying to make it with monk fruit because I have diabetes and I'm going to see how it turns out. But like, I love your recipes. And It's just so sweet.
That's really, really sweet.
Yeah.
And it's got to be like a little weird, obviously, when people come up, but then it's really reassuring when people actually literally have the ingredients in their bag.
Oh, it's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah.
How do you decide on what project you're going to take on? Your book, Sweet Tooth, it covers such range, which I think 15 years of writing a publication will give you that range. But like when you're doing the original content on either your socials or on your website, how do you decide what you're going to tackle?
I think that first it has to be something I feel creatively inspired by. So sometimes that creativity can come in the form of just seeing somebody else do something and it sparks an idea of my own. Sometimes it's something that I've been chewing on for a while that I finally feel like, let's bite the bullet and do it. So creativity, I think, is really important. And I also think that one reason I've been able to have such a long career in this space is because I really keep tabs on like where the market is headed, what the market is doing. Like I feel very analytical in terms of like noticing trends and noticing where, I've seen 3 people do something in this style and this seems to really be like something people are gravitating
towards. Are you
towards.
literally analytical? Are you looking at Google Trends?
I'm not looking at Google Trends, but I would say like as analytical as you can be in your mind and sort of just like making like a little like mental note of like, keep this in mind, keep this in mind, keep this in mind.
You're like fondant is back.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Things like that.
Yeah. Like, and I think sometimes that there's trends that like absolutely don't make sense. So I won't hop on them. But when I do see a trend that people are really gravitating to and people are really enjoying, I mean, like you have to hop on that, but not just trends like food trends like industry trends. Like I think 2 years ago, we were seeing a lot of people do really well on video when they were doing like hands and pan style videos, not like tasty hands and pans videos, but like, doing ASMR, like putting things in bowls, really keeping the camera like that.
3/4 shot, right?
Yeah.
Nothing overhead, but 3/4, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing so many people who are just putting the camera right in front of them and just talking to the camera while they're making something. And so seeing that shift, it's important in my content for me to have that shift too, to just sort of keep up and keep people's attention in the way that they're already liking.
What about dump cakes? Were you on that trend?
I was not on that trend. I've never made a dump cake. I would happily eat a dump cake.
For sure.
A dump cake and what is it, like the Sprite pie?
Oh, Sprite pie,
Yeah. I would totally eat that, but I haven't.
Yeah, I'm more like exactly like you. Like I'm not gonna turn down like a mug cake or a dump cake.
Yeah, like I'll eat it happily.
Yeah.
I'll house it.
I'll house that. But you're not fully subscribed to it.
Yeah. I think that the type of dessert that I like and the type of food I like, but the type of dessert I like is dessert that like has those nostalgic flavors, but done in a slightly, I don't want to say elevated, but like done in a slightly more exciting or unique way.
Well, you talked about creativity at the jump.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We'll get to some specific recipes, but I love your baking lessons. There's some real point of view here, and I want to go over a couple of them. One is nobody cares if your cake isn't picture perfect. They just want cake. Great lesson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. All these baking lessons, they're at the end of the book.
No, they're at the beginning.
Okay,
which is a good place to put them. I think you want to.
We had so many iterations,
bro.
Like
I know, no judge. You don't.
Oh
like,
my God.
Your book, you don't know where things end up.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's at the beginning of the book.
We'll edit that in. Just kidding. We'll keep that in.
So there's these 10 lessons, and they're just lessons that like they have nothing to do with anything besides just really motivating people, making people feel seen, heard, inspiring people. And I think the idea that cake needs to be picture perfect is so silly.
Yeah.
Like people who want cake, they want just a giant piece of cake in front of them. They just want to eat that cake. They don't care if it's a little lopsided. They don't care if the frosting is really thin in between the layers, but really thick out. They're just like, they're so excited about cake. So I think bringing that attention back to the baker who's making it and being like, hey, if this is your first time making cake, yeah, you have permission to make it incorrectly. There is no real incorrect. Like it's just cake and people are going to love it no matter what.
It's a really good lesson. Another one that really stuck out. The biggest secret in the baking world is under baking. I love that cosign. Talk about it.
Okay, so you can have the most amazing recipe for a cake, a brownie, a cookie. If you overbake that thing, it's not good anymore. It's just not. And there's so many factors that go into things being baked correctly. So one is the type of equipment you're using. Like if you're using a dark colored sheet pan versus a light colored sheet pan, that makes such a difference. If you're using an oven that says it's at 350, but really it's at 375, that makes a huge difference.
Right.
So no matter what, keeping tabs on making sure you don't overbake something, and in fact, underbaking just slightly is like the best thing, because underbaking just means that it's still fully cooked, but you're going to get that moisture in there. It's like that like little magic moment before all the moisture goes out of that baked good, and it's still fudgy. It's still chewy. It's still.
We all went to middle school
Yeah.
and we had those underbaked chocolate chip cookies.
And they were the best.
They were the best.
Yeah, I mean, like when they're so underbaked that sometimes you'd lift them up and the middle would just stay
Not
there.
a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
I love it. It's great to have that permission to underbake a little bit. I actually overbaked one of the. I baked your peanut butter chocolate chip cookies from the beginning of the book. That's on me though.
Oh no.
Because I didn't use my oven thermometer.
I know. And so especially peanut butter can be really tricky because
Yeah.
that overbakes in like a split second.
For
So
sure.
you really want to make sure. And the thing I would say with cookies, this is for everybody, cookies you really want to take out when you are like 99% certain they're underbaked. Like you're like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Like take the cookies out and then let them rest on the sheet pan, because the sheet pan itself is still so warm.
It will bake it more.
It's going to bake it more when it comes out.
Now, Sarah, you have an absolute passion for baking. And it's interesting to me because I think you're like sneaky creative, sneaky smart about everything. And you really, really, really have this dedication to it. And I want to get a sense, what interests you about this hobby, this job, this cookbook, this world that you kind of create with your socials? You could be doing a lot of other things. You're very talented, but baking has been it for you. Why?
Wow. Great question. I think there's something so special about baking, and I talk about this in the front section of the book, but baking is completely unnecessary. Like we don't need to bake
So good.
to eat.
Yeah.
But we
So
do
true.
it because it brings so much joy. And it brings so much joy to us as we're doing it. It brings so much joy to us as we are able to share it with the people we love. It brings so much joy to people who eat it. It just creates so much joy in the world. And I think there's very few things in life that, you know, scratch that same itch, where you're doing it for people you love. You're doing it because you want people to like feel happy.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it feels, it's just such a heartwarming feeling. I also think that my personality lends itself to baking. Like I am very technique forward, and not technique like classic French pastry
Yeah.
technique, but just like I love when things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I love when I know exactly what I need to do to get exactly to
Can we
where I
talk
need
about
to
the
go.
math?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're like
Yeah.
into math. Like obviously, you're like a math person.
Well, I mean, I did do well in math in school.
There you go.
And I did do well in science in school.
Okay.
But I still really need help when I like do the tip at restaurants. So like I don't know
Yeah.
how good at math I am.
Yeah. Move the decimal point one and
Yeah, yeah.
double it. That's
But-
all I do.
But I am good at like
Or
ratios.
give it more than double.
Yeah.
You want to go over 20.
Yeah, exactly.
You wanna go
Sometimes a
25,
little-
so-
And then like even if you move it over, then sometimes if you have to carry anything, it's
The
just
carrying can be hard.
it's too much for me.
I get it. I always,
too much.
yeah, it's like do it over, double it, plus a little bit of X.
Yeah, and then just a little bit of extra, and then
Yeah. But clearly,
It's a whole
math,
thing.
you got it.
yeah, ratios I'm really good at. Love ratios. And I really like once I like once I understood enough about baking, I really liked like knowing those things that you can only know from baking for
Yeah.
so long, and being like, okay, well, we can't do it this way, so we're gonna add a little more of this. But if we add a little more of this, we got to go down on this, and like it's just like this fun little almost like orchestra in your head that you're like the conductor of. I just love it. And I think too, I, like so many other people, grew up with a mom who was always cooking and baking, and they weren't like crazy things. Like my mom doesn't have a good chef's knife. Like my mom doesn't know how to chop vegetables finely, but she was always making things homemade, and the same went for her baking. Like they were not these like 3-layer, like 5-component different baked goods. They were things that, because she was a single mom working a full-time job, she would just whip up and we would eat it and we would all love it. And it was just a really cool like combination of having this person in food who inspired me to love food, but also not treating it so delicately.
Yeah.
I think it translates to what you do because you
Yeah.
bring human elements to it. This isn't like an experiment. This isn't like a math equation back to that. There's
Yeah.
definitely some human element. I get what you're saying. What were some of those dishes that your mom made like on the baking side of the coin?
So the thing she made the most was chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
And she pretty much did the chocolate chip cookie recipe on the back of the Nestle Toll House chocolate chip
Fair.
bags. Yeah,
Super fair.
but like she still doesn't know technique. Like sometimes she would use melted butter, sometimes she would use softened butter, and so they would come out differently all the time. And we had fun sort of guessing how those cookies were going to come
Yeah.
out. She did boxed brownies all the time. Ghirardelli double chocolate brownies.
Yep.
If you know, you know.
You know. Yeah, those are
She
good.
had some really good coffee cakes. There was a cinnamon chocolate chip coffee cake that was amazing. Her carrot cake is phenomenal. I riffed on the carrot cake in the book. It's now called Reeby's chocolate, or excuse me, it's called Reeby's carrot cake, which is my sister's name. Because my mom would make this carrot cake every year for my sister growing up. It was like the cake she requested every year on her birthday. So things like that, just like very simple but delicious.
Your mom's awesome. I like hearing about her. This is great.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the London Fog tea loaf.
Yeah.
You call it quiet luxury. Very funny. Why is it quiet luxury?
Okay, so quiet luxury is like elevated basics. And I feel like that's what the London fog loaf is. So this London fog loaf, it is a loaf cake flavored with Earl Grey, and you actually soak Earl Grey tea bags to make this cake. And then it's topped with a lemon icing that just goes over, and the lemon really brings out that like floral acidic nature of the Earl Grey. And I think that it's like you eat it and it doesn't go like it's not like oh my god. Like you eat it, you're like lovely. Like you just
Lovely. Yeah.
Aw.
Like it's a London tea cake.
Yeah, it's a London tea cake. And I think it's just it's quiet luxury.
I love that you good reference, good 2023 reference. All right, make the case for making a pavlova.
Okay. So pavlovas are not difficult. They just look difficult.
Yeah.
It's literally like 3 ingredients. Is it 3 eggs, sugar, and like
Air?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like cream of tartar.
Cream, yeah.
Like it's so easy, and salt, but like that doesn't really count.
Doesn't count.
Oh my god, it's so easy. So like you put it all into a mixer. You just whip it up until like it's really, really, really mixed. And then you put it in the oven. The thing that people struggle with pavlova is they take it out too soon. And with pavlova, it's very delicate when you take it out. It's still really warm. And if you take it out when it's still warm, it can end up like sweating on itself. It can end up getting moist and soft. So what you want to do, bake it, then open up the oven a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you're just going to leave it in the oven and let it slowly cool off in that warm oven. But like pavlovas are so fun because people think that you know how to bake.
They look fancy. So
They look so
what are you
fancy.
putting like sauce-wise on this?
Okay, so we have a pavlova in the book, and it has like, you know those cherries that come in the containers that are like blue and yellow, and I think they look Greek or something.
Oh.
They're like beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Totally love those.
So we put those on, so they're like this just marinated cherry, and then we do some chocolate shavings that we put on top, and it's just like this black forest situation.
They're like Luxardo cherries?
Luxardo cherries, yeah. And so just cherry, chocolate, and then whipped cream, pavlova. It's so good. It's
great.
so good.
I love the simplicity of it all, and it feels like you really speak a language. You speak you're accessible with your recipe development.
Thank you. I really try to strike this note between being accessible and accessible in terms of flavors, but then being different or unique or just exciting in terms of where those flavors go into the form, right? So there's this whole chapter in the book, and it's basically taking familiar flavors and putting them in new forms.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of my favorite chapters in the book, just because it's all about taking things that you like, you know what to expect when you eat it, but you haven't ever eaten it in that way. And it's just so fun.
Very smart. Okay. You remove checks from Puppy Chow. You remove checks from Muddy Buddies. As a product of the Midwest,
Yes.
I found this to be brash. Maybe I have a lot of emotions. I love it, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
Please explain yourself.
Okay. So I'm not opposed to checks and Puppy Chow. I think checks and Puppy Chow are great, and I love how the chocolate like goes into the middle of the check, so you can sometimes
The best part.
Yeah, you get like a
The
really
best part.
crunchy, beautiful chocolate. But I really like pretzels because it adds this salty component.
Totally.
And the salt with I mean, puppy chow is so sweet. You've a little bit sweet peanut butter, fine. There's like a little salty, but like it's pretty much sweet.
All that chocolate.
Chocolate, so sweet. And then you coat it in powdered sugar. So you have so much sweetness happening. I think that having something salty really helps to balance it out. So, you know.
I'm really into that.
Okay,
I'm buying it.
good.
No, sorry. I wasn't trying to say that I wasn't into it. I was just like questioning it. And
I
you've
hear you.
answered the question.
Okay, good.
Let's talk about Alex Beggs.
Oh my God.
Alex Beggs is like a behind-the-scenes food media person. She used to be at a BA, has written a bit for Taste. And when she told me about your book, she's like, oh man, Sarah's so fun. This is like a great book project. But she's a part of your team. Let's give Alex some shout.
Alex Beggs, I love you. She is incredible at what she does. So she technically came on as like a copy editor. I chose by the end to call her a collaborator because I could not have written as well, or this book could not be written as well as it is without her. And what she really was able to do was I had all these ideas for how I wanted to write things and explain things. But I would say them in ways that were too long or kind of silly or like didn't fully hit on the right like ethos of what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
And she was just so effortlessly able to be like, oh yeah, no, I know. Here's what you mean to say. And it was exactly what I meant to say. It was like I had someone in my head able to take words out of my head. It was absolutely incredible. And she's just like, I mean, she was so collaborative and I felt like there was such this mutual respect for what both of us brought to the table. I mean, I love her. She's amazing.
Well said.
And also she lives in Ann Arbor and I did my second 2 years of undergrad at University of Michigan. And so I love that we have that little Michigan connection.
I love that. And then you ended up living in Detroit. You're like a little Michigan gander in you.
Yeah, I weirdly feel more connected to Michigan than to Massachusetts.
I love it. Love to hear it. Well, thanks for sharing that about Alex.
I love her. Yeah.
So, Sarah, what's like the post-book future for you? I mean, you're so great on YouTube. I feel like long form is perfect for you. I mean, are there TV ambitions? I feel personally it would be cool to see you on TV.
Wow, thanks so much. I really love doing my YouTube series. It's a lot of work and a lot of money to produce.
Yep.
And what I think was interesting is at the time that I did it, I didn't feel like it had enough traction for me to pour as much money as I did to continue it. It's something I would absolutely love to do. But I also did it. I think the first one I did was like almost 2 years ago, and the second one I did was like almost a year or over a year ago. So like it could totally be different. I love doing on-air stuff. I love being able to like perform in front of the camera. I love being able to explain things to people in front of the camera. Like I love that aspect of it. So I would love to do more like that. I love doing in-person baking classes. I think just being able to riff and sort of like interact in that off-the-cuff way is so fun for me. It brings me so much energy. But I don't know.
You don't know? Wow, you went
exact.
like full circle, but then I
I
thought
want to
maybe
do it. I'm scared.
you want to do it, but you're scared. Okay.
I have this dream, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
But I really, really, really love the idea of starting like a frozen cookie dough company.
Yeah.
I think it would be amazing.
I think it'd be great.
I don't like the idea of baking mixes because if you buy a baking mix and you
gotta
have to
do
do
the
the work.
work.
Yeah, you got to do the work. Nobody wants to do the work. They want to have something that they can have fresh, but they don't have to do any work for it. And if all you have to do is take a frozen cookie dough, put it on a tray, bake it up, like amazing. And I feel like it would just like scratch an itch for me in terms of like entrepreneurship to produce something physical. Like something I've loved so much about the cookbook process is creating something physical.
Yeah.
It's been so fun. So to be able to do that, I think would be amazing.
Speaking of physical,
Yeah.
like a Broma bakery, like with 4 walls,
Yeah. Okay,
pop
so
up. I mean, it could be temporary, it could be like real. Like, what's that?
I looked into it. I was like ready to sign on a space in Boston.
Whoa, you were there! Wow.
But the like terms the company was using, I really didn't like. It was basically like I don't want to say like a mafia thing, but it was basically like they took a percentage of profits, and I was like, this doesn't make sense.
I've
Like
seen The Departed.
I
mean, those guys
that's
are
what
rolling
they
up
did.
there, yeah.
Like, you shouldn't take a percentage of like, if I do better, like, you're just a physical space. You're not providing any more
I think that
to
was a
me.
bad lease.
Yeah, I don't like it. So that's why I didn't do it. But also I like talked with my agent and I talked with my editor, and they were like, you should definitely just like focus on the book this season and like maybe do that next year. But I do like the idea of a physical space. I think it'd be really fun. I do, now that I live in New York, I think doing something here would be amazing. But there's so much good stuff here, and there's like you know, I love what's already happening. I almost feel like it could just be like more worth the squeeze to go fully like retail or
Makes
something.
sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, anything that's brick and mortar in cities is just so challenging.
Yeah.
So your instincts feel very, very on point.
Yeah. I worked in restaurants in high school and college, and I was almost exclusively front of house. But I mean, I very much like saw how much work it is to run a restaurant. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from it was just that no matter what happens, you come back the next day and you got to do it again. And I have so much respect for people in restaurants. I think that I don't want to hold myself to that anymore at this point in my life. So
Such a good point. It's not said enough. The actual dedication, even doing a year of a restaurant.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Where did you work in New York?
Okay, when I was in New York, I worked at 5 Points.
Oh, yeah,
So
right.
it's now Vic's.
Yeah.
And
But when it was 5 Points, I love that place.
When it was 5 Points, yeah. So that was amazing. That's all I did when I was in New York, and then I worked in some bakeries in Boston, and then restaurants in Michigan. So.
Oh, that's so cool. That's a good location, man. Downtown spot. What a brunch.
Oh my God, their brunch was amazing. And at the end of my shift, they had a smoked salmon Benedict that you could have on a big biscuit.
Yeah.
And the biscuit was so big that I would sometimes cut it up and have like half of it after brunch and then have half of it the next day. Yeah. Oh my God, it was so good.
On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire Fast and Furious taste check. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The best fruit.
Okay, white peach or white nectarine. Either.
Let's go with peach. So, okay.
I've defeated the purpose of it being fast already.
How do you bake with white peaches?
You just eat them.
That's the best answer. I love that. The worst vegetable.
Okra.
Yeah, it's.
I really respect what people do to okra. It's not for me.
Not for you. Okay. Big one for you. The best dessert.
Chocolate chip cookies.
Okay, so what makes a good chocolate chip cookie then?
So it has to have a mixture of brown and white sugar because you need to have it be crispy on the outside, crispy on the outside, and chewy on the inside. It needs to have like enough thickness that when you bite in, like you feel a little bit of a give. It can't be so thin that it just melts away. It needs to have a ton of dark chocolate chips. Can't do milk chocolate chips.
Yeah, dark always.
And it needs to be underbaked.
Always. We talked about that. Okay, so let me ask you your favorite American fast food chain.
It's In-N-Out. I thought about this. It's In-N-Out. I just love In-N-Out. I love the simplicity. I love the company. I think it's so delicious.
Your favorite New York City restaurant?
Okay, wait. I'm defeating the purpose of it being fast again, but I did write these down, and I have a few different ones.
You prepped for it. We give you a little bit of heads up.
Yeah.
Some wild curveballs too.
So, best meal in the last month was Miss Ada.
Yep.
The best Comfort Vibes diner in Williamsburg, I think is so good. Best lunch, Gotan. It's this little space in Tribeca. So good. The hummus is amazing. Best steakhouse, Fort Charles. I think Fort Charles is so good.
Damn, you got the reservation.
I know, it's so good.
That's a tough res.
Oh, it's such a tough res, and it's so worth it. Yeah. And I hate how much of a scene it is, but like that food is so good. Best pizza, DeFara. I think it's so delicious, and I think that a lot of people don't like it, and I don't really understand why. Because when I ate it, it was like the best experience of my life.
DeFara is great. I'm not going to judge.
I sense some judgment.
I think F&F is probably my pony, and L&B Spumoni Garden is number 2.
Okay,
but
I haven't done F&F yet, so I'll get back to you.
Well documented in the show.
Okay,
so.
And then best splurge, Sushi Nakazawa.
What was there an occasion or you just went?
It was my birthday a few years ago. We went. It was just incredible.
I love those answers. The most slept on dessert.
Scones.
They catch strays left and right.
I know. I had a horrible scone yesterday. I was very upset about it. But when you have a good scone, it's life-changing. It's like all the best parts of a muffin and more. Plus butter, plus crunch. Like, I love it.
Well said. The most overrated dessert.
Okay, so I brought you something. It is the most overrated dessert. It's a muffin. But I did bring you a
You
muffin.
brought me the most overrated dessert.
It's
You're
what
so
I
kind.
happened to
Thank
bake
you.
yesterday.
Look at this. Oh my gosh, this is like I get a Broma Bakery baked good in my hand.
But I think muffins. Okay, so please heat that up. That's gonna be the way.
Yeah.
So just put it in the microwave for a few seconds. Put it in the oven for a few minutes. When a muffin is bad, it's like really bad. But I promise that one's good.
I'm gonna keep this for a special time. I like that.
Nice.
Your pastry role model.
Okay, I have a few again. I think Dory Greenspan is incredible. I just love her approach to baking. I love how she marries technique with accessibility and like these American palettes. I think she's incredible. I think Christina Tosi's the queen of creativity.
Yeah.
I just think she hits on nostalgia so well and does things in this way that's just like, how did you come up with that? But like, duh.
Yeah.
But like, what? So she's incredible. And then last, I think Claire Saffitz has done such a good job at kind of similar to Dory, like taking technique and making it accessible, but for younger audiences, which I like so appreciate. And I think she's just so cool.
Great choices there. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
Okay, favorite cookbook of all time, I think, is Jerusalem by Otto Lengi. I am obsessed with anything like Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, Turkish, like that whole area. I think that food is the best food of all time. And I think his recipes are so unique and inventive. I love how much he works with herbs and spices. I just love that book.
Such a great call. I love his rice dishes as well. They're so fantastic. A favorite recent cookbook discovery?
Okay, so this is my friend, but I think this cookbook is incredible. And it's not a cookbook, it's a cocktail book. It's called Pretty Simple Cocktails. It's by Juliana McIntosh. She and I have been like friends in real life and also online for a few years. But she is so good at coming up with unique cocktails you have not seen in restaurants, you have not seen when you go to bars. Like they're just so fun and interesting, and they're so well balanced. She just has such a unique take on things. I also think the book in general is like beautifully shot. It was shot by her sister. And it's just like every single page is stunning.
I love that shout out. A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
I would like to learn more about German baking. I feel like Germany has a lot of really cool pastry that I know absolutely nothing about.
Yeah. So would you go to Germany and like stage? Would that ever be in your future?
Oh my God, I'd be so scared to stage in Germany.
Yeah.
I feel like though that would be a really great way to do it. I think first like doing some sort of trip where I like plan a few days around going to bakeries would be the way to do it. And I think just like anything, getting in your own kitchen and just like learning from other people who are already masters at whatever they are doing is the way that you can learn the best.
So smart. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Okay. Super simple, but it's the sandwich I asked for from my mom every single day growing up. Smoked turkey. It can be honey smoked turkey, but it has to be smoked turkey.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise, mustard, lettuce, tomato, sometimes sprouts.
Yeah.
And then when I got older, I would do avocado. When I was younger, I would do cheese, just like any sort of cheese. Sometimes a Swiss cheese, sometimes like a cheddar, just like a classic. Oh, and the bread.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say.
Okay, so the bread, I really like a slight rye bread or something that has some sort of like darker, deeper notes. Also like a really good whole wheat or like a seedy bread or something like that. So really like soft and chewy and almost like a little spongy on the inside and then crispy on the outside.
That's quite the hippie sandwich.
It's totally a hippie sandwich.
I love it.
But I am obsessed with sandwiches. When I was younger, I always thought I wanted to own a sandwich shop. I was like, I don't want to own a restaurant, but I would own a sandwich shop because there's something so fun about sandwiches.
Something fun about it.
Complete
you can eat
meal.
it all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Any meal.
Yeah. I eat a sandwich still every day. Okay, so my sandwich now every day. I get into hyperfixation lunches. Like I don't get into hyperfixation breakfasts or dinners. But lunch, I will eat the same thing for months/years on end. Okay, the one right now. Seduction bread from Whole Foods.
Okay.
Very important.
Yep.
You have them slice it because like in the bread slicer at Whole Foods because you can slice it really nicely there. And then I do Ithaca beet hummus. And then I do avocado, sprouts again, arugula, a little bit of an heirloom tomato if it's in season. If it's not, skip it. And then I alternate between, mustard. And then I alternate between smoked turkey. But now I really like doing like a true house smoked turkey. Like I won't do like a deli smoked turkey that's like,
Processed
a
and all
boar's
that,
head.
yeah,
No. So like I think the Whole Foods like house smoked turkey is pretty good. Also their herb turkey is really good. I guess I really like deli
Yeah.
turkey.
Yeah.
And sometimes then I'll also do, this sounds weird, like a baked tofu.
You're playing with texture here, Sarah. I mean, there's a
It's
lot of
like
texture
pretty
going on.
good. And you like, sometimes I feel like when I eat, I was vegetarian for like 5 years. And sometimes I feel like when I eat meat in the middle of the day, I feel a little slumpy. Sometimes. So sometimes the tofu is really, really nice.
Sarah Fennel, what a sandwich and what an interview. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.